Hi, welcome to my channel. My name's Chance and it's Friday, so I've got some hot takes for you. You know, talking about hot, it is getting toasty here in Boise. I may have to lose my signature teal sweater because AC in my place is kind of garbage. And if I'm gonna buy a new AC unit, this YouTube channel is gonna have to do significantly better. With that being said, let's dive right into my very first hot take in this hot season and talk about hot streak. Now right there, that's called a segue. That's something a pro YouTuber can do. And I think I nailed it. I don't like it, but I think I nailed it. So we can mark this as the day that this channel really takes off and I can buy that new AC unit. Well, with that being said, let's dive into Hot Streak over here. Now, this is a game that I saw pop up on the BGG hotness list and I was like, that looks weird. I don't know what this is. I ignored it. Then I was listening to I listened to some board game podcast and a new one popped up for So Very Wrong About Games. Didn't even look at the title, just hit play, you know, and lo and behold, they were talking about Hot Streak. They got a review copy from CMYK and they just gave it a glowing review. They gave a review that made me so excited. I just said, hey, I'm buying this. Like right after the review was done, I went to CMYK and hit purchase. Yeah, I don't recommend doing that. Don't listen to a reviewer and immediately go out and hit purchase for the game. That's a terrible idea. Usually when you're watching a reviewer, you get excited and you're kind of in the moment and you're gonna make some bad purchasing decisions. Maybe give it a day or two, let it cool down. So right after I ordered, I had a little bit of buyer's, let's say remorse. I was a little concerned. I was like, oh wait, did I actually want this game? Do I know anything about this game? They were excited about it, so well, I hope. Finally, and then got it played pretty quickly because this is like a 20-minute game, really easy to teach, super easy to table. So I figured it would be really easy to pull out on one of my group game nights and just knock out a play so I can get this hot take in. Yeah, I love it. So it was a good purchase. This is a fantastic game. Now, I'm gonna say way overproduced. This game probably should cost 15, 20 bucks. But due to the production with this ridiculous box and these pre-colored minis here, like this is Dangle the fish mascot. So this is gonna be a mascot race. And these are, yeah, pre-colored and very well, like I really like the details on these. You even have the eyes of the person in the mascot costume on each one of these. Like they are just great. And all of this adds to the toy factor of the game. Is it important for the game? Yeah, I would say so. This is one of those games that I think benefits from having this toy factor. It gets people a little more excited about the game. If I had just a small box with some cardboard minis in there or whatever, or standees, I don't think this would be as thrilling. So I really do think that this toy factor enhances the experience with this game. So let's talk about what this game actually is. This is just a betting game. What's going to happen, you're going to set up the race and then there's going to be a bunch of betting tiles out. Then players are going to do a snake draft for those betting tiles. So each mascot here has 3 betting tiles. The first one is going to have the largest payout because essentially the first person that chooses the betting tile for that character says like, I have the most confidence in them. And they're gonna get the largest payout for that if they take the first bet on that mascot. Now there are also some side bets that are kind of like, I bet that 2 mascots will fall or be in the same space during the race, or 1 mascot will be DQ during the race. So there's little side bets, which add some variability to the game, because without the side bets, there's a decent amount of variability, but these side bets add a nice bit of more flavor to the game, I would say. So there's a bunch of betting tiles out, and essentially you're just going to do a snake draft. Like you go around the table, everyone takes a betting tile, and when they take it, they can choose to take the safe or the risky bet. So the safe bet has pretty even payout for first through third place, but the risky bet will give you a big boost if the mascot takes first, but it'll reduce payout on that second and third place. So that's the kind of the trade-off that you're going to do. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Everyone does that snake draft. And then what happens is that players will actually have a hand of 3 cards, and those cards are going to be movement values for the mascot. There's going to be a default set of cards for the mascot, and this is going to be before the first round is the only time everyone sees the cards. So you kind of get an idea of how far you think a mascot will move, how often will the cards show up during the race, because you're basically going to take all these cards, shuffle them together, then you're just going to reveal them during the race and move your mascot. So you get that, you kind of look at these, and during that draft for the betting, you're going to be like, oh, I think Gobbler is going to do well. He's got like 5 cards in his row, so I think he's going to have some big moves in here. So maybe you go big on Gobbler winning this race. But before the race starts, everyone gets to add 1 card from their 3-card hand to the race deck. And that's going to be secret. So they basically are going to manipulate the odds a little bit with that race deck. And this is the point where maybe you made a bet depending or based on what you think you're going to add to the deck. And these cards are, they're great. The race works phenomenally with these cards because, so after everyone's done adding those cards, you're gonna process them. Basically, the dealer is gonna shuffle up that deck. You burn 3 cards off the top, so there's gonna be 3 cards that are not revealed during the race, and then you're just gonna start revealing one at a time. A lot of the cards will be move, so it'll be move 1 space, move 3 spaces, or move to like the next star space on the map. And other cards are going to be like fall down. So the mascot just falls flat on his face, trips and falls over. Some are going to be swerved to the right or swerved to the left, which could knock them off the mat, or they could just run into another mascot, knocking over that mascot. Then we have things like turnaround. So now all movement is going to actually take the mascot in the wrong direction. So it just creates this really fun, chaotic race. And by having those bets, when people make those bets, this is where the game, you have a little bit of investment in those characters. Like during my first game of this, Dangle was kind of like he was the star. He was the star of the show. So everyone's betting on Dangle and everyone's cheering like, come on, Dangle, get going, Dangle, you can make it, Dangle. And then you have Dangle fall over and be like, no, oh, come on, get up, Dangle. So and then you get a recover card, and that recover card gets Dangle back up, then he sprints across the finish line. And there would be other moments where it's just like we had Mum, which Mum was doing terrible the entire race, but during one round, Mum's just like shooting off into the lead, and then all of a sudden just Mum gets no movement and just stands there for a little bit while all the other mascots catch up. So this creates it's a really dynamic race. Like once the race starts, no one does anything about it. You just flip these cards and reveal them and then just process it until you get the first, second, third, and fourth. So there's not a lot of decisions in this game, except for that initial bid and putting that card in the deck. And this is where I think the game is going to either shine or fall flat for your group, because I would say you're going to get out of this game what you put into it. You have to bring the energy to this game. It's kind of like, unfortunately, I've never played Ready, Set, Bet, but I would give it a similar vibe as what I've heard from Ready, Set, Bet. Like, as long as you have someone like in the announcer position, as long as they have some excitement going with it. And this game has you choose people for the kind of the dealer, and then choose a person for the handler for moving the mascots, choose someone for doing handling the banker side of things. And I think it's important that when you set this game up, if you're going to be the dealer, you gotta bring some energy. You gotta be excited about it. You gotta flip these cards over and be like, Dangle moves 2 and swerves to the right. He knocks over Gobbler. So you gotta make it a little, add that excitement in there. And then if you choose a handler, choose someone that you know is going to bring some flavor and bring some excitement to the game, because that is what is going to get your group kind of going with this game. If you're just in that set of, you're like, okay, here's my betting tile, and then you flip over the cards, like, okay, move that guy 2, flip over the next card, okay, move this person 1, he swerves to the right, flip over the next card, oh, this mascot turns around, and then you just kind of process it to the end. Yeah, you're not going to have a lot of fun with this. I can see this also falling flat if someone tries to be a little too analytical. And like at the start of my game, I got a little concerned because right out of the gate, the very first player that was choosing a bet, he was already trying to process his odds, over process his odds. Like you want to process your odds. You want to be like, oh yeah, I think this guy's going to do bets. But already like we started round 1 and it was like, hey, like make a choice. Like this is not a heavy game. Like just like don't think too much about it. Make your choice. And then also you have the downside of there's only 3 betting tiles for each mascot. So as you go through it, like I played a 5-player game and Dangle did become a favorite. He had the most cards in the deck, the race deck, and he won like the first 2 races. So he had high odds going into that 3rd race, and everyone drafted Dangle. And then like those last 2 players, they don't have the option to draft Dangle for their betting ticket. And this is where you could run into 2 situations. You could have the player in 4th being like, well, I can't draft the person who's going to win. Like, this is stupid. Like, I don't, why would I choose any of these other people? Like, this is dumb. Or you can have the player that's like, you guys are going all on Dangle. I think Dangle's days are over, and it is all in on Gobbler. Gobbler is taking this race, so I am taking Gobbler's betting tile, and you know what? I'm going risky because I am guaranteeing Gobbler is going to take Dangle out in this final round. So this is where, like I said, you're going to get out of this game what you put into it. If you have that group that just, let's say, doesn't know how to have fun with these light games, then I don't think this is going to be a good fit. But if you're looking for just a nice, fun, chaotic, and it does have that race feeling of watching just this chaotic mascot race, it does such a good job of bringing you into that theme. I do, like, after my first play, I don't think you're going to be upset with this. Only downside, like I said, is that it has that $50 price point. And the production on here with this game board and stuff, while it's really unique, it has like this roller in here to pull this game board out, which is really cool that you just pull it out of the box, and then at the end of the game, you just roll this guy back up. I do question how long this is going to last. So that's a mild concern. And the shape of this box is dumb. I kind of get upset with weirdly shaped boxes because I never know how to store them. And then also transporting it, it's like it has a magnetic flap, but it's not a very good magnet. So I try to put a rubber band around it when taking it places. So yeah, some downsides there. But I am really excited to get it back to the table. I'm going to be bringing this to basically every game night and hoping that if we have time to get in a filler, that we're going to be playing this. It does play, I guess, 3 to 8. I think is the standard one. I think it's going to play best at that kind of 4 to 8 range. There is a mode for 2 players, and I might give that a try before I review it, do a full review. And there is a mode for, I think, 9+ players. Like, you can do this with a lot more people, but I think the adjustment is that you're going to be keeping track of things on pad and paper, which will reduce that excitement a little bit more. But I think the bigger group, if you have a big group with a lot of energy, I think that might actually be a really, really cool time with this game. So that's going to do it on my hot take for Hot Streak. Like I said, I think this is one to keep an eye on. I really do think it is just a great game. It's a fun time. If you have the right group for this I think will be a hit. Okay, so with Hot Streak out of the way, let's move on to my second hot take of this video, and that is going to be Spectral. So Spectral is a game that I was really looking forward to. Spectral is a deduction game. It's a bidding deduction game. Basically, you have these grid of cards out, and they're going to be face down, and then players are going to place their workers or their explorers out in the hallways of these rooms. So those cards represent rooms, and you're going to be bidding along the edges of those cards to try to win gems. So the gems are going to show up based on the rules on the cards. So like the cards, when you look at them, they're going to have either a gem or a curse on them, but the gem or the curse doesn't show up on that card. It has a rule of where that gem is going to be placed at the end of the game, or when you do the reveal, I guess. It'll be like, oh, it's going to be placed 2 away in the clockwise direction, or it's going to be placed 2 away in the diagonal direction, or it's going to be placed 1 away in the same quadrant as this card. So there's various little deduction rules, and essentially you are trying to make sure that your explorers or investigators, I think, end up next to rooms with gems, but they don't end up next to a room with a curse. Because essentially, if any explorer is next to a room with a curse, that explorer gets removed from the game and they will not earn any points for the game. So it's this, you're not going to have perfect information. So it's not it's not like Search for Planet X where you're trying to deduce to the only possible solution. With this one, you're just trying to find enough information to kind of protect your explorers and make sure that you end up with gems at the end of the game. So it's kind of weird. I played it at 3 players, which I don't think is the ideal player count. I think this game's going to be better at 4 and 5, because then there's going to be a little more jockeying for those positions. With 3 players, I didn't feel like we were competing too much. There was a little bit of competition for these spots, and so with the bidding, like when you put out an explorer, the person to knock a person out of that bidding position, like to knock a person out of the hallway, you have to bid at least double what they put down. So if they put down 2 investigators, you have to put down at least 4 investigators to knock them out of that hallway. And this is one of those ways where when you knock someone out of a place, like those explorers or investigators, whatever, go back to their supply, and then they can reuse them for their next bid. And the game ends once everyone has passed. Now, yeah, so at 3, it was an okay experience. Like, I thought the deduction puzzle was neat, but like I said, there wasn't enough competition for the spaces to make it too interesting. And I felt like you could get lucky. Like, I felt like I got pretty lucky in the game with my opening kind of investigation. Like, I found some gems early on in a quadrant, and I kind of focused on that quadrant. And then the late game just was trying to isolate the curses, just trying to figure out where the curses are so I don't have any of my explorers in the wrong hallways, basically. And I was able to deduce most of the information in the game. Like, I feel like I had 90% of the information, and then there were some areas that I was just like, well, there's probably not a lot of gems in that area, so I'm just gonna ignore it and see how things go. And yeah, I ended up winning, and I think it all came down to kind of just choosing that right area of the board early on in the round. I don't really know if it was due to my ability to deduce or due to my ability to outbid other players. Now, I do think the dynamics would change if we played this a little bit more, because then maybe if you found an area early, you might put a little more aggressive bid down, because the idea is that maybe if you throw down like 2 explorers, now you're going to make that spot more costly for the next person that goes there, but maybe you convince them that, oh, this is a good spot. Maybe you throw down 3 explorers and make it super expensive for them. And the idea is that you're trying to maybe misguide other people with some of your bids, but you also don't want to be left in a spot with a curse. So if you don't trick that person, like if you go into a spot with a curse and you don't trick that person into outbidding you, then you're kind of just screwing yourself as well. And there's not always a reason for that person to just kind of like trust you and be like, oh, you put a lot of people down there, so I'm gonna assume that that's a good spot. Because you tend to have enough information yourself to kind of be like, I think I found some gems and I'm fine with these ones. So yeah, Spectral, I had a lot of hopes for, but I still like, I love my first play of Search for Planet X a lot more. Like, that one drew me in. That's a perfect deduction game though, and I absolutely love Search for Planet X, so that's why I was looking forward to Spectral so much. And I really do think I just need to try it at maybe 4 and 5 players before I kind of give my final judgment on it. But first play at 3, it was a little lackluster. It wasn't bad, but it just wasn't something that I was thrilled with. All right, so on to my next hot take for this one, and that is going to be Santorini. And I think I played the Pantheon edition. We had so Santorini is a 3D abstract puzzle, kind of chess-like with the feel, and we both had a god power. I don't know what the base game setup is for it, but it was really easy. So like, the game's really easy to learn and teach. Like, that's one of the benefits to this. It was easy to dive into. So Santorini, we had our own god powers, and we had 2 meeples on this grid board, and essentially we got to, I think there were a couple actions. It was like move or build. So like, those were essentially what you could do on your turns. You could move and build. And your goal was to get one of your meeples up to the 3rd story of a place. But the challenge was that the other person could actually build, and they can put a little cap on the tower. So once it gets to that 3rd level, they could actually build a cap and prevent you from getting up to that 3rd level. So you have to try to position your people in a way where you're blocking out the other player, and there's a way that you can only climb up like 1 level at a time, so you could actually block someone out by building up around them so they can't actually get to that 2nd level. They gotta build kind of a staircase to get there. So there's a lot of maneuvering and blocking and trying to get yourself into a position where they can't block you, so you can get up to that 3rd platform. And then using your god powers are kind of interesting. Like, they sound like that they all added a kind of unique twist to the game. And overall, I really enjoyed Santorini. This was a nice time. Like, this was something that I could see just playing back to back a few times. It's nowhere near as stressful as chess, but I could see, yeah, someone getting a little overly analytical with it, kind of like chess, and they could be like, oh, this is my opening move. But I feel like the god powers would kind of put a a kibosh on kind of like your opening move strategy because you have a little bit of variation with those god powers. But so overall, had a really good time with it. This is one of those games where it falls into the category of kind of like Hive is another two-player game that I really like, but I don't play it very often. I don't play these abstract two-player games too often. Usually when I'm playing two-player games, I like playing kind of these lane battlers or even the card dueling ones like Lands or Wizards of the Grimoire. So they don't hit the table as much. And Santorini has the downside of being in a very large box, so it's not like a travel two-player game. But I would be more than happy to play Santorini again. Okay, next up is on to my hot take for Expeditions. Expeditions is one, I have a lot of thoughts on Expeditions, and I'll try to keep this relatively short, but Expeditions is a follow-up to Scythe, or it's a sequel to Scythe. It is not a Scythe-based game. So like it's not the same mechanics or structure of Scythe. It's mainly the same universe as Scythe. And the theme is that you all have a mech and you're out exploring, you're trying to move to the north because essentially, I guess a meteor hit or something and you're finding fragments of it maybe as you're traveling along. And weird things are happening. You got some Cthulhu-esque vibes going on with the game, which kind of weird. I don't really know if that fit in with my vision of the Scythe universe. I kind of like the Fenris expansion for Scythe because that brought in some more cyberpunky stuff, which I thought was cool. The Cthulhu-esque vibes were they were fine, but it didn't really add anything for me to the game. Now, as far as my thoughts on Expeditions, so this is one of those games that I found to be mechanically very interesting. Like I thought the mechanical design of it was really good, but the gameplay itself was uninteresting. And I've listened to a few reviews on this because I was trying to figure out if I was missing something with this, but some of the reviewers I've heard have stated some of my same concerns and good things about this game. Like this game has a lot good going on in it. I really like the action selection system because it keeps kind of that Scythe DNA. You're moving around this action selection marker, and in Scythe it used to be that you could only do one column at a time and you had to move from one column to the next one, so you couldn't just repeat the same action back to back. In Expeditions, you basically cover one of the actions that you can't take. So I think you have play, move, gather. So for the most part, like if your cube's on play, then you have to cover move or gather, and you won't be able to take that action on your next turn. So maybe you're going to do a move and gather, and then after you do the move and gather, you cover up move and you do a play and gather. So you're kind of trying to work on your optimal sequencing of actions by managing this cube that is blocking one of your actions every time you go. Then there's a refresh turn that can that has some benefits then. But yeah, so action selection, I really enjoyed kind of that puzzle of how to do the action selection, which was the similarity, the closest similarity to Scythe in the game. There was also the star system. So the star system was it was taken from Scythe, and essentially, once again, the end game trigger was someone putting out all of their stars, and then that would trigger the last round of the game. Unlike in Scythe, they took away once someone puts their last star out, the game ends immediately. They made it so the game ends after everyone takes one more turn, including the person that put out their last star. That was kind of a nice change. I know that some people kind of hated that trigger where someone puts out their last star, then the game's just over. I kind of appreciated that. It's one of those things where, yeah, the end of the game can kind of suck for some players because they're like, I needed one more turn. But I felt like that was part of the game. And I also kind of like the fact that you didn't have to wait for that final analysis turn, because sometimes people on that final turn, you can get that crazy analysis paralysis where they're trying to eke out every possible point they can. So it becomes the stakes become so much higher for them on that final turn when they know it's their final turn. So in Scythe, I kind of appreciated that the game was just like, nope, you're just done. No, don't try to eke out any more points. You should have planned for this. You should have saw this coming. And Expeditions takes that and says, I'll give you an opportunity to eke out a few more points, which it's good and bad. It has its merits because it does make the end a little more satisfying for some players. It takes away that bite of the end, but it also loses the the benefit of just kind of, you know, game's over, let's just do scoring now. The other thing I really liked about this was the card play. Like the card play, it was a tableau slash deck builder, and overall it had a Concordia feel to it. Like the Concordia card play system where you're playing these cards and they're going into kind of like a, well, in a discard, or in this game they call it the active area. And then you would essentially have to do a refresh phase to be able to get all those cards back up into your hand or whatever to be able to play them again. So it had a very Concordia puzzly vibe where you're trying to play your cards in the correct order of the correct sequencing, so you can kind of put off your refresh turn as long as possible. And then eventually you'd be like, okay, I need to do a refresh so I can get all my cards back and have more actions available to me. And I did like the puzzle of how the card actions tied in with your main action system and the positioning puzzle of the board. I felt like all of it was very fluid. It all fit together really well. And the game was, for me, relatively quick. So I've heard some reviewers complain about the time on this one, but I played it at 4 players. 2 of us had never played it before. And the game took, I think, just over 2 hours for 4 players. I will admit that I was aggressively going for the end game because I kind of, that's usually my goal in these race style games, is to aggressively push for those end game conditions. So I feel like if you didn't have someone kind of doing that aggressive push, the game could drag. Like it could definitely drag if everyone's just kind of like trying to do everything except put out stars. But yeah, in my game, I would say 2 hours, 15 minutes or so. And the teach was it was like 30 minutes. It wasn't terrible. And I felt like it was pretty easy to grasp everything going on. Like there was nothing that was overly complex in the game. It was lighter than I expected, to be honest. Okay, now I got to talk about the things I didn't like. So overall, like mechanically, this game, I think it did a really good job. It was a really good puzzle. It had a neat race. But then there's so many things that I felt like were misses on it. Now there's some nitpicks, like I have nitpicks on the symbols, like there were some weird choices in the symbology. The card text was insanely small. I don't really understand why that was. And that was also terrible because the card market was spread out within the map. So you would constantly have to be picking up these cards to read what they said because there was no possible way of being able to see, and there's not enough iconography on the cards for you to be able to parse like what that card does. So I felt like that was kind of a weird choice. And then some of the icons on the cards, like there's melding of meteorites, and the melding of meteorites has this like house looking symbol on the board. But then on the cards, like for some reason it was a sideways arrow. Like it was the same symbol, but it put sideways. And I had the question, I was like, does sideways mean something different than up? And there was no call out for that. So there are some weird choices on that. Then also terminology in the game, there some strange choices. Like it kept referring to your cards that were available to play as your hand, but your hand is on the table. And then you would basically move cards over into your active area, and that means they couldn't be played. And then if you manage to rescue a card or refresh, those all go back into your hand, but that's still on the table. I was like, I don't like that this is called hand. Like there were some oddities in the choices in this one. Then next up on theme, so I really like Scythe. Like I love the Scythe theme, I love the Scythe universe. I think I love that cyberpunk, alternate history, Europa style thing. Really, really enjoy it. And I think Fenris does a really good job of even bringing out that theme more. And with the Cold War system with it, like everything in Scythe kind of drives home that theme for me. Like the fact that you are trying to get popularity to achieve victory and achieve dominance in the nation. And to me, that just brings out that Cold War feeling. Like you're trying to get your citizens to align with you and to support your country and be the most popular in the land or whatever. And racing for those glory, those stars, like getting that glory. So your citizens say, yeah, we live in the greatest country, not those guys over there. They don't live in the greatest country. You're just racing to get those things out. And occasionally you do those battles and you can get out two stars for battles, and your citizens are like, yes, we are the strongest. But then you go into that third battle and your citizens are like, I kind of feel like we're being bullies. I don't think we deserve a reward for this. So let's say no on that one. And then also same thing, like scaring off the other players' workers will cause you to lose popularity. And people are like, you're being a bit of a jerk we shouldn't be doing this. I don't feel good about this, so no. So I think that brings out kind of that trying to build up your nation during this Cold War period, and then also just the fact that the combat is very risky for you, like going into combat. So players are constantly building up their forces, but always afraid to go into combat, and you're wondering, when do I risk going into that combat? Then finally, those expedition cards, like when you go out and explore and you get one of those cards, it has the great, I really like the art on that. I know there's controversy around the art, but I still really like the art. And the fact that you get those 3 choices on those cards, and usually it's like, one choice is like, oh, you're being a good person. Then the middle choice is like, you're kind of neutral. And then the bottom choice is like, ooh, you're about to do something morally questionable here. But you're gonna get some big benefits, but very morally questionable. And I think that just brings out the theme even more. Like you're in that Cold War period. Are you going to screw over your citizens so you can gain that food, so you can enlist more soldiers? Or are you going to help them out with their farm and kind of gain a little bit of popularity and maybe gain a new worker? So you got to make those trade-offs, and I feel like those choices during the game are what bring Scythe to life. So now on to Expeditions. Expeditions was very lifeless. There was nothing that told me about the story of this. You were going out, I guess, gathering meteors and I think melding them to your mech and making your mech look pretty because you earn money on it. So you're blinging out your mech, I guess. Because the meteors didn't add any real powers for you, but you could find tech to upgrade yourself to improve things and get a little bit of an engine builder going. But overall, it was like, I'm trying to think of an analogy for this, and the best thing I can come up with is that playing Expeditions is kind of like planning a day of errands. It's kind of like, well, I need to go to the grocery store to get ingredients for dinner, and I need to run to FedEx because I got some, I don't know, flyers that I need to print out. I had a book to pick up at the bookstore, and then I needed to stop at the post office. So let me figure out the optimal sequencing of actions. So let me see, if I go to the post office, that'll put me next to FedEx, which will allow me to then quickly run over to the bookstore to pick up my order there. And then I could stop at the grocery store because it's going to be on the path back through this area. That's what Expeditions felt like. It was figuring out the sequencing of actions of just saying like, okay, if I move over here, I can do this action. Then if I do my play and gather, I'll be able to play this card, which will allow me to chain this action with this one, making this turn more efficient. So you're just working on that action efficiency. And this did not help with the theme in any way, because it was just looking for the correct symbols. It was looking for how do I get the things that I need so I can put out these stars. And it's one of those games where, yeah, the theme just doesn't come through for me, because like I don't remember any of the art in the game other than the fact that it looked like Scythe. And next up is player interaction. So Scythe it's so good because the players are keeping that tension on you. Like someone puts out a mech in Scythe and you're like, oh, I might need to get a mech out. I need to shore up my defenses. Like I cannot let them come in and take over my territory. In Expeditions, the only interaction is unintentional blocking. So basically someone might be in a spot that you want to be. And I feel like this is kind of the worst type of interaction because it's inconvenient. It's not even like they tried to stop you from doing something. It's just that they also needed the same spot that you wanted. And they didn't care about your tableau in any way. They didn't care about what you were thinking about. They didn't care about your future plans. It's just like they needed that spot as well. And you're just like, it's kind of like, oh, well, there's a line at FedEx now, so I guess I'll go to the post office first, and then I'll come back to FedEx later. That's the type of thing that would happen in the game. And this is what made the game fall flat for me. So I'm going to mention that other reviewers have called this out, and they've given it, I've seen a few of the more, I would say, large reviewers say like, yeah, this is a downside for the game. Like this kind of made the game fall flat. But I will call out Dice Tower. They had some of the same complaints that I had. They talked about the same pros, the same cons, but the Dice Tower team ended up with ratings of like, I think 7.5 to 9 out of 10. These were very high ratings for this game. These are recommendations for the game, right? And I understand, like, there is a really good puzzle within Expeditions. Like, it is a really well-designed game. There's nothing it's not blowing my mind. Like, the card combos, there's nothing just crazy out there, like game-breaking, that's like, ooh, wow, look at this card. Look at what this one's gonna do. It's just, the cards do basically the same thing that you can already do, just maybe give you a slight improvement on what you could do. And it just allows you to chain your actions together a little more efficiently. So none of them are absolutely phenomenal. But it is a cool puzzle. And I think that's where the Dice Tower team landed. They're like, this is a cool puzzle. This has a cool, just like core, the heart of this system is really good. And I feel like if I was rating the puzzle system, I would be giving this, yeah, an 8. Like, I did really enjoy this puzzle. But then if I was rating this as the player interaction and the player game, I would be rating it as about a 6 or so, maybe a 5. And that's where like my final rating of the game comes in at like a 6. Whereas I think the Dice Tower team, they said, nope, the puzzle trumps the player interaction, so we're coming in at like the 7.5 to 9 range. And I guess that just depends on what you're looking for. Like, if you're totally fine with just the mechanical intricacy of the game, I do think there's something here with Expeditions. It's just, it doesn't have enough for me to make me want to come back to it. And the theme just didn't come through for me in the game at all. And there were just some other oddities in the game, like the meteorite melding is one way you can gain money, but the balancing of the cards felt off. Like, there were some meteorite cards that would say, oh, if you meld this one, you gain $1 for each of something, but only to a max of $3. And then the other cards that were just like, gain $1 for each player in the game. So if you had 5 players in the game, that one just gives you 5 money. It is just straight up better than one that has a max of 3 on it. So there were some weird things with those card choices with that melding system, because it could just, like, that seemed like a very luck-based thing, whether or not you're gonna get 3 or 5 or 6 or something. I don't know. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna stop there on Expeditions, because I already talked way too long about it. So overall, really cool systems, really interesting design. I just wish there was more to the kind of the player interaction side of Expeditions. Okay, so let's close out my hot takes with a quick and short one, and this is going to be Fugitive. Fugitive is a 2-player game, and it is I guess a hidden movement deduction game. So basically, one player is doing the hidden movement and one player is trying to figure out where the other player is. Similar to other systems like Mind Management or Sniper Elite, which I haven't played, but I really want to. But it's a much simpler version of those things. So essentially, one player, that's going to be the person the fugitive that's trying to escape. They are going to start at position, I think 0 or 1 or something, and they have a base movement value of 3. They have a hand of cards, and their base value movement is 3. So essentially, that means that they can move 2 cards, 1, 2, or 3. So if they're starting at 0, I could be wrong on the start position, but essentially, they get to move up to card number 3. That means the second card they can put down could be a 1, 2, or a 3, and because essentially they're just building out their path that they're going. But they can boost their movement by placing cards under that card. And the boost value, it's like you're going to have shoes on the card, shoe prints or whatever, and there can be 1 or 2 shoe prints on a card. So basically, you know that each card that goes under the card that they move to could boost their base movement value by up to 2. So let's say that they're starting at 0 and they choose to put down the second card they want to go to 5. So maybe to get to 5, they play the 5 card, and then they're going to boost it with 1 card that has 2 shoes on it. So both those are going to go face down as the next card in the row. And then essentially the detective on their turn, they're going to try to guess where the fugitive is at, or guess previous cards the fugitive card has been to, because they're trying to figure out the path the fugitive has taken to get to their escape plane. So essentially they have their little marker board and they say, is that card a 4? Because essentially they put 1 card under it, so they know that they could have moved a maximum of 5, so they have to guess somewhere between 1 and 5 for that card. If they get it right, hey, they won. Now, in the first round, the fugitive does get to put down 2 cards. They get to go 1 and then 2 places. That way they don't get eliminated immediately for the most part. But that's the goal of the detective is, and they have this little board where they continue crossing off things, like they made a bad guess, or if they figure out what one of them is, they're going to circle it. And then essentially that's just going to be the back and forth. The fugitive's going to draw cards. There's different movement decks, so they're trying to get to 42 basically. And there's a way that the detective can kind of minimize or reduce the number of options for the fugitive to try to narrow that deduction space down. And yeah, so it's just that back and forth of that fugitive player playing a card and then the detective trying to guess what those cards are that have been played. And then there's a really cool thing at the end that if the fugitive makes it to the plane, the detective gets one more final opportunity to try to catch them, and they have to guess every card that is still face down on the board. And if they manage to do it, then they've caught the fugitive. If not, fugitive gets away. And overall, I really like this puzzle. Fugitive was really fun. I find it, I like these deduction puzzles. I like these head-to-head deduction puzzles. Like, I did enjoy Mind Management, but it is a game that I sold because I found that the best mode for it is 2-player, like the head-to-head versus, because essentially as you add more players, I felt like the players on the team side, they had to be at the same wavelength, or else there was just going to be some conflict and some annoyance. So I didn't enjoy playing it at the higher player counts because I didn't feel like that was always the best dynamic. So I felt like the head-to-head mode was always the best, but I felt like the turn lengths were very asymmetric. Like the person doing the movement didn't have a whole lot of choices, and then the person doing the deduction, they could take forever. So basically it had this very asymmetric balance of kind of interesting decisions to make. Whereas Fugitive balances this out. The person doing the deduction still has I would say the more difficult puzzle, but the Fugitive still has a decent amount of decisions to make. And this is where, yeah, it makes the turns a little more even, makes the game a little more snappy. It's probably my preferred head-to-head hidden movement game at this point. Like, I really enjoy what Mind Management does, but Fugitive, we can just pull out and play a quick round, and I don't feel like I have to wait forever for that person to do their deducing if I'm playing that Fugitive player. So I think it does a really good job kind of balancing this hidden movement genre. And it has these shift cards that kind of go into this advanced mode, kind of like Mind Management, like you have some extra rules that you can add into the game. I've not played with those, but I'm interested in exploring them. Now, the only downside to Fugitive is that I do feel like it is surprising or easy to cheat. And not necessarily cheat, but to make a mistake. Like, for some reason, as the Fugitive player, counting just like +1 to 7 or whatever, I had a harder time than I would have expected because I can't count out loud. So sometimes I'd be like, okay, that was card number 3 that I'm at. So that means I can move up to 6. And then if I want to boost it, I could go up to 10 because I have this many cards in my hand. And then I'd be counting, and I would be trying to not count out loud. And then I'd eventually put down the card. And yeah, I made a mistake in my first game and realized that I was planning things out, and I put down the second card that I was planning on doing instead of the first card I was planning. And yeah, that was a bit of a problem. Then the other player playing the Fugitive one time, I think they also did the same thing where they swapped 2 of their position cards on accident. And oddly easy to just make that mistake as a Fugitive player, but that's the only downside I had with Fugitive. I did really enjoy it, and I look forward to playing it again. Also, very small box, so easy to take with you. Okay, so that is going to do it for my hot streak review, or hot take reviews. So just quick review, hot streak, I absolutely loved it. Can't wait to get it back to the table. I'm super excited to play it more. I had a blast with it, had a fun, lively group, and I am really excited to play it with even larger player counts than 5. Spectral, meh. Need to try it at a higher player count, see if it stands out a bit more, but it was a okay experience. And I love deduction games, so that's kind of a bit of a downside for me. Santorini, excited, I will play it. It's not one that I'm going to be clamoring for, but I had a good time with Santorini and would be more than happy to play it again. Expeditions, really cool mechanical puzzle, but just doesn't have any player interaction, and the theme doesn't stand out in any way to me. So it's one of these games where I would play it again. Like, if someone asked to play it, I don't think I'd turn it down. It was fast enough, it was snappy enough where it was absolutely fine to play, but it just lacked. It was just missing that piece that would bring me back to this puzzle. If it tried to bring out a little more player interaction, maybe I'd have more interest in visiting it, like asking for it, but it just lacked that player interaction. Then finally, Fugitive. It's a great two-player game. I'm excited to play it again. I want to explore those shift cards and see how that advanced mode plays out with Fugitive. All right. As always, thank you for spending your time with me. I really appreciate you watching this. I hope you got something out of it. Let me know if you have any questions about the games that I talked about today. More than happy to talk about them and give you more thoughts or more details on them. I'll have a review of Hot Streak coming out pretty soon because I expect to get it played a couple of times this week, hopefully. And right after that, yeah, I think I'll be ready to give a full review of that game. So yeah, thank you for watching, and as always, please like and subscribe.